this is the answer. This is the magic pill. This is a magic bullet. This is what you need to do. That is a huge red flag because what works for you may not work for me, right?
Exactly.
And it's okay that it doesn't work for me. I'm glad it
Mhm.
worked for you, but this is actually my journey, and it's okay that I'm on a different journey than you are,
Mhm.
and not feeling the guilt or shame because what worked for you didn't work for me. Welcome to another episode of Her Hormones Empowerment Restoration. Today, I am thrilled to introduce Dr. Chelsea Anorma, a certified nutrition coach and chemical biology PhD who is transforming the lives of overwhelmed women, helping them regain their energy and confidence. As the co-founder of Medichem, Dr. Anorma believes her extensive knowledge in chemistry with practical wellness tools to provide science-backed, compassionate coaching. With over a decade of experience in chemistry research and education, and a background as a former chemistry professor, Dr. Anorma has recently shifted to clinical coaching, focusing on empowering busy women, particularly mothers and professionals over 30, to make sustainable, joyful shifts in their health routines. Her coaching emphasizes weight management, plant-based nutrition, stress reduction, and sustainable lifestyle changes. Dr. Anorma believes that health doesn't have to be perfect to be effective, and she combines holistic strategies with scientific clarity to ensure her clients feel seen, supported, and empowered. Let's dive into today's episode and explore how you can make meaningful and lasting changes in your health and wellness journey. Chelsea, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello. Great to be here, Mindy. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is I'm really excited about this conversation. You have such a unique background with a PhD in chemical biology and being a certified coach, nutrition coach specifically.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your journey, about how you went from PhD to coaching and then how you combined them and got you where you are today?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm a bit of a weird person, but let's walk you through it. So, yeah, I've always, the heart of it, right, is I've always had this heart to help people, right, especially in terms of health. That was always kind of a driving motivation for me. Early on, I thought about being a doctor. My parents were always like, yeah, medical field, go. But I quickly realized that, all the blood and guts, it's not for me. So I thought like, okay, so how can I kind of do that, but like, also have like an impact on health. So I loved chemistry in college, and I realized that as chemists, you can actually help to cure diseases, create new medicines. There's a lot of possibilities there. So that's what led me to get my PhD in chemical biology at the University of Illinois. Chemical biology is just a fancy way of saying that we study a lot of chemistry and we use it to apply it to study biological systems like our bodies, right? But yeah, so that's where I really dove into research. I did my thesis on cancer stem cells, so learning more about cancer biology. But it's really rewarding, obviously, to say like I'm working on cancer. But it's also really specific. A lot of people don't realize like when you're getting a PhD, you're zoomed in on this one tiny problem, which is important, but it's like, it's part of this bigger puzzle piece of curing cancer. But you can spend years just like developing one chemical tool to answer one single question. And you're spending a lot of lonely nights in the lab, a lot of, trial and error, things like that. So I felt a little bit isolated because while I love the science, I really miss like the human side of like really interacting with and helping people one on one to do. So I sort of transitioned out of straight research when I graduated my PhD, and I went into being a chemistry professor. So I got to teach, pre-meds and pre-nursing students their chemistry. And that was really fun because I got to kind of help them, connect the dots between the molecules and the medicine that they're going to be working with later on. But I still had that itch to do something more directly health related, and that's how I fell into nutrition coaching. And that's honestly where everything clicked because like nutrition really is chemistry at the end of the day. A lot of people, there's a lot of buzzwords of like, oh no, chemicals, bad. But that
Right.
always kind of frustrated me as a chemist because everything is chemicals, right? Our bodies are these amazing chemical systems. We take in food, which are, made of chemicals, and we break them down and we use it to build up our bodies. It's pretty amazing, honestly, all the things that our body can do through nutrition. So that's kind of how I put everything together. I know deeply from, chemistry side, what the nutrition entails, and then I can help to, simplify it down and help people apply it to their everyday lives. And that's where you really see the rewarding bits as people go, aha, I know what that is. And I know how to make all these yummy foods now to give me the nutrients that I need. And so that's kind of where I put together the teaching, which I love, the science, and helping people with their health.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I love how you, and you're right. I mean, I never really even thought of it that way. I always talk about, when you do talk about the chemicals and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much bad stuff out there, but you were absolutely right. Right. And that's a prime example how buzzwords are not actually, they can be so harmful in the overall picture. And so yeah, I mean, I'm going to start thinking about that differently now, because yeah, it is, our bodies are amazing, and there are so many different chemicals and stuff in our bodies that help us function and make us who we are. So amazing. I love that. You've mentioned that you've been plant-based for about 10 years. So I know when I am talking to some of my clients and they are really wanting to go plant-based, one of the first things that always comes up to them is, how am I going to get enough protein? And so, and as women, especially, protein is so important, right? So for people and women who are new to plant-based eating, or they're thinking, okay, this is where I want to go, what are some of the key benefits that you have experienced personally, and how can plant-based nutrition help support women's hormonal health?
Right. Yeah. Great question. So much to unpack there. So let me start with my personal journey. First of all, you mentioned about 10 years ago was when I about started plant-based, but honestly, I don't quite remember the exact date because it was a gradual process. I do remember my first motivation to do it because it was not long after my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So thankfully, she made a full recovery because we caught it early. Everything was fine after her surgery. But it was obviously a really scary time, and it really made me and my mom stop and reevaluate, okay, how can we take care of ourselves better? And for my mom, then one of those things during her recovery process is she decided to go vegan. And so I kind of decided, okay, I'm going to also be vegetarian to kind of support her on her journey. But it took some time. I remember it was like a New Year's resolution. I said, I'm going to be vegetarian. And then in a few weeks, I accidentally walked into a Subway and got myself a chicken sandwich. So
Darn it. It was like this trip.
it
Trip
doesn't,
and fall, and here I am at Subway. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
oh, really? Oh, how did I know? It sounds funny, but it
That's
actually happens.
hysterical.
Those kind of habits take some time to break, right? So
Right.
for your clients, definitely, take it easy on yourselves, right? It doesn't happen from one night to another. But the benefits definitely are pretty incredible because I used to have pretty intense eczema, for example, all over my, arms, legs, sometimes up to my neck, maybe really self-conscious about, clothes I was wearing. I also used to suffer from migraines. Doctors couldn't really figure out what was wrong with me, but I had these intense migraines almost every month. I'm guessing it had something to do with hormones because it's that cyclical nature of it. But those have completely stopped. I don't even remember the last time I had a migraine, which is pretty amazing. And
Wow.
obviously, things like heart palpitations, just all the intense stress I was under. Um, all that had to be, gone over with lifestyle and exercise and all that. But the plant-based eating definitely helped a lot because, it reduced potential allergens that could cause the inflammation that were giving my migraines, increased amount of fiber and phytonutrients I was getting to just kind of have a more balanced, gut microbiome, hormonal balance. We'll definitely dive more into that in a bit. But yeah, there's just so many ways that the plant-based approach can help. So like I mentioned, fiber. fiber helps your body sort of process and eliminate, if you have excess estrogen, for example, it can help balance that. If you're, have troubles with blood sugar or insulin levels coming up and down, having extra fiber kind of helps slow down, the absorption of the carbs that you're eating. And so that, helps give you steady energy throughout the day. And just it has also an overall anti-inflammatory effect because of all the beneficial phytonutrients. So if any of your clients are interested in doing it, I know protein can be a bit of a worry, but honestly, there's a lot of ways to, get that. I personally I don't track every day, but every now and then I can sort of check in and do a tracking, and I'm able to get easily over 100 grams of protein without, having to do like too many protein shakes or things. There's a lot of different techniques that we could get into, but yeah, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, just one step at a time. And yeah, it's definitely doable and worth it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm a big one of progress over perfection, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like, and I think we have such a mindset that if I'm going to do this, like this is your New Year's resolution, so I'm going to
Right.
go vegan, right? And then that stinking Subway just tripped you up. And so then but a lot of times when stuff like that happens, we get like, well, I blew it, so it's all out the window, right? And
Yeah.
instead of just realizing, you know what? It's progress over perfection. Today, I'm going to replace this food with this one, and we're going to start
Mhm.
bringing foods in one at a time. And eventually, we're going to get there. And so it doesn't have to be hardcore, and it doesn't have to be we have the all or nothing mindset all the time. And I think part of or one of the most incredible things that we can do is we can give ourselves grace and just say, okay, you know what, I'm doing this a step at a time. And so I love how you said that. We just have to take it slow, and
Mhm.
it's work, you'll get there. So amazing. um I was listening to another podcast the other day, and this
Mhm.
doctor said on there, she said, not taking away from any other group of people out there, but when we look at women, specifically women from ages like 30 through premenopause, postmenopause, and menopause and postmenopause, excuse me, and all
Mhm.
of those, she said, there are no other groups of people in this world that are more overwhelmed, more stressed, right? We have basically the weight of the world on our shoulders. We've got the young kids, and then and then so we have like the 30s where we have the younger kids, and then all of a sudden they're growing up and we're getting into they're graduating high school, and so then we're getting into empty nesting, and then all of a sudden we're into this premenopause and menopause phase, and then we got postmenopause, and then our parents are getting older, and so now we're taking care of them, and we've got all of this stuff that's going on, right? New financial stuff that's coming on, and women are just overwhelmed. And on top of all of that, right, we have to do all the things, right? We have to have our fitness, we have to drink our water, we have to get our steps, we have to change our eating patterns, we have to do all of this stuff, and our energy and our confidence kind of go out the window because we're tired and we're just overwhelmed.
Mhm.
So can you share some of the most common challenges women face when managing their health, especially in today's fast-paced world, and how you help them navigate these challenges?
Yes, I mean, I don't think I could say it better, but yeah, it's like woman, I don't know. I remember one of my clients, she was talking to me about like she's a gorgeous girl, but somehow she still felt like she had to really improve her appearance. And she's like asking, like, why does my stomach feel so full sometimes? And it's like, well, it's because you're not a robot. When you eat food, it
Right,
goes somewhere and get digested, and it's fine. That's normal, right?
right.
But yeah, it's women definitely have that pressure of like you have to be perfect and take care of everyone at the same time somehow. And it's really unrealistic, but it is a real pressure on that. So there's also the issue of like there's so much information out there that we don't know what to do. Like there's all these social media posts you say like of people like I don't know what to eat anymore because everything apparently is toxic.
Right. Right, exactly.
So yeah, that's honestly where, well, you and I as coaches, we come in. Like I like to tell people to, like slow down, take a breath, and to like check in with ourselves. We have to look at what's actually going on with our lives, like where our stresses are coming from, what we're carrying, what maybe we don't have to carry, like I know that's a hard thing for so many women to be able to kind of let go a little bit and see if we can delegate. It's hard. Sometimes it's not super possible, but you need to try it, I think, because yeah, a lot of women are carrying way more than they should. But yeah, so giving them that space basically in coaching where they don't feel judged, right? Because like they get that from so many other places, and just kind of offering them real information, reassuring information, right? Thankfully, health doesn't have to be all so complicated as a lot of the social media people make it sound like. It's okay if you have, a seed oil or I
Right.
don't know, whatever the scary thing is today. It's not going to need it, you're not going to immediately die. There's ways to have balance and still move in a positive, healthy direction. But yeah, so that's generally, the advice I give for folks.
I love that. I love that. And it's funny you bring up seed oils. I'm always telling people, life is about balance and we have to be able to find that balance. And because otherwise it's not going to be sustainable, right? None of our lifestyle is going to be sustainable if we are, again, that all or nothing mindset. And so we have to be able to know that when we're going to go to a birthday party or if we're going to have a piece of birthday cake because it's our kid's birthday, it's okay to have a piece of cake, right? We just don't want you having the whole cake. But we don't want you like your life, you shouldn't look back on your life and go, man, I was at that incredible work event, but I was so worried about what I was eating, I couldn't enjoy it. Or I was at that family vacation and the whole time I was on that vacation, I was worrying about what I was eating, right? And so it's finding that balance and understanding that one bad meal doesn't replace the whole day. And we're able to pick up and go on and continue on with our day after we've celebrated or after we've done whatever it is that people deem bad. And
Yeah.
so and on that same, you mentioned that there is so much information out there, and there is, right? I mean, women can go to Google. We can Google, or we can chat GTP it, or we can do anything like that. So, and there's so much information that it is overwhelming. And so then you get that paralysis, right? Because there's so much information, you don't know which way to go. And so then again, you get to that, well, forget it. I'm not going to worry about anything. I'm just going to do this because there's so much other stuff out there. So how do you guide your clients to discern what is actually beneficial for their health, especially when it comes to nutrition and hormonal balance?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, navigating that is pretty tough. Obviously with my coaching clients, I'm able to, one-on-one, show them good, reliable, science-based resources for things. But if I had to give sort of like general tips for like discerning what's good information and what's not, honestly, it's like be careful with people who sound too confident. Which is kind of counterintuitive because if you see someone who's out there on social media saying like this is how it is, this one food will fix your hormones, this supplement will change your life, it sounds like, oh wow, they really know what they're talking about. It sounds reassuring, but it's actually not how real science works. So that's was one of my big takeaways, from my PhD, is like I actually got to see behind the curtain and like this is how science happens. Um, Unlike in the movies, right? Science doesn't usually happen all at once, right? We don't prove things with like one experiment. It's proven. We know this for sure and certain. What it really is like a long sort of ongoing process. We ask questions, we design experiments to test those questions, and then we build evidence over time as we answer them, right? So when something is actually supported by science, it's usually because a lot of different studies from lots of different labs all over the world are pointing in the same direction. And it's not just because one person, did one thing and it worked. So that's kind of the tricky part. When you're looking through social media claims and things, you want to avoid people who are saying really extreme claims or offering magic bullets, because honestly, there aren't any. It sounds sad to say it, but it's true.
Exactly.
Yeah, there are good things that we can do, but in general, you want to look at patterns of evidence. You see, like over time, over a lot of different studies, this is what's been shown to be effective. You want to see people kind of talking like that, and also you want to look at people who are kind of transparent about nuance and uncertainty, because honestly, especially in nutrition science, it's really hard, honestly, to do a nutrition study because we're not going to place people into labs like lab rats and feed them a certain diet.
Right.
Right? In real life, like that's never going to happen. So we have to kind of observe people and find other ways to tease out, what nutrition patterns work, right? Definitely people who are honest about like, okay, this is what this study suggests. We're not 100% sure, but these are the pros and cons. Those are people who are usually, like really looking into the science. Folks who are like, this is it, are probably kind of going over things a bit more superficially.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of my general advice in that direction.
Right. And I think it's so important. And you were saying, with science, it's a process, but
Mm-hmm.
also I think it's so important to understand that we're all different, right? We are
Exactly.
all
Yes.
like biologically different from one to another. So
Yeah.
when somebody is making these claims and they're saying, this is it, this is the answer, this is the magic pill, this is a magic bullet, this is what you need to do, that is a huge red flag because what works for you may not work for me, right? and
Exactly.
and it's okay that it doesn't work for me. I'm glad it
Mhm.
worked for you, but this is actually my journey, and it's okay that I'm on a different journey than you are.
Mhm.
And not feeling the guilt or shame because what worked for you didn't work for me, right? And feeling like, I think so often people think, well, I was taking that medication, or I was taking that supplement, or I changed this diet and I was eating this way, and
Mhm.
it's supposed to work and it didn't work for me. So what is wrong with me? And it's not that anything's wrong with you. It's just that you're different and you're supposed to be different. And so I love how you were like, we can, with science, you change it. We are not
Mhm.
a lab rat. We are a human being, and we are the person who is bio individual from the next person. And so I think that's such a huge, important distinction. And I love how
Absolutely.
yeah, I love
And
how
not,
you said
not
that.
just biologically and genetically, right? But also your environment.
Right.
Every person lives in their own different, food environment or social environment, and that makes as much a huge difference in how successful you could be or like what success looks like for you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So, speaking about chemistry, so you obviously have a really deep understanding of chemistry, right? And how it impacts our personal health. So, can you explain, let's break it down and explain what hormones are, how they function in our bodies, right? And
Mhm.
why it's so important that women understand the role that they play in our overall well-being. I think there's so many times where we're like, well, it's my hormones, it's my hormones. And I know for the longest time, when I thought about hormones, I thought, well, it's just the women hormones that are screwing me up. But it's not. I mean, hormones are our whole being, right? And so can you kind of explain how hormones function in our bodies?
Yes. All right. So this is a deep topic. Um, so we're gonna try to break it down and focus on basics. But yeah, we could spend here, who knows, 3, 4, maybe 5 hours. I don't know. But we're not
Yeah,
that kind of podcast. So let's focus
exactly.
on the basics.
Let's make it little.
All right. So chemically speaking, the reason there's a lot of confusion on a lot of like nutrition topics over time overall is because we think about like the labels we put on things like hormones, protein, fats. It seems like they're just one thing, but really they're like a multitude of things, right? So hormones is just the name for this class of molecules. They come in all different shapes and sizes. They could be small molecules, they could be proteins, it could be everything. But the idea, they're called hormones because of their job. So their job in our body is as a messenger, essentially. So these molecules, they could be small molecules like estrogen. It's actually made from cholesterol, interestingly. Others are like proteins like insulin. They're made in different organs in the body, right? Your estrogen, for example, is made in your ovaries, insulin from your pancreas, others from your hypothalamus. So there's a lot of organs in your body that produce these messenger molecules, and then they travel throughout your body near your bloodstream, and they deliver those messages to other parts of your body, different organ systems, by binding to specific receptors on your cells. All your cells, throughout your body, on their surface, they have things called receptors, basically that fit your hormones, kind of like a key fits into a lock, right? And once that, key fits in, that sort of turns on a whole messaging cascade inside the cell. It tells them to turn certain genes on and off, to make different proteins or whatever your body needs at that moment, right? So one way to think about it is like, imagine your body's like a city. It's like a huge, busy city. It's probably New York, there's a lot of things that you need to keep it running smoothly, right? And all the different parts of your city need to be constantly communicating with other parts, like the transportation needs to talk to sanitation, power needs to talk to housing, all these things need to talk to each other. And there are different ways to do that communication. Sometimes you have a quick, direct communication, like the mayor texts the message to one of his employees. So that's kind of like your nervous system. The brain fires off a signal via nerve. Okay, move this muscle. That's kind of fast, targeted, instant feedback. Now, hormones are a bit different because they're more like a policy change in a city. So they take longer to roll out, but they affect a lot of different departments at the same time. So instead of texting one employee, you can imagine the mayor is now sending out an official regulation that the entire sanitation department needs to change how trash is collected. So it's slower, it's more broad, it takes more coordinated action. And that's essentially what hormones do. They help you orchestrate big picture things like metabolism or growth or mood or reproduction, right? So that's kind of the amazing thing about them, is that they can affect so many things at the same time. And that's also why they're so important to understand and be able to support your hormones, because of how they can affect all these different things, right? So they have the power to shift everything from better or worse. And so we need to understand them, especially for women, because they kind of fluctuate, with cycles, with stress, with age, and they can impact how we're feeling physically and emotionally. So supporting our hormones really, to me, means not just like, throwing a supplement at it or like trying to control it. It's more about giving your body what it needs to do its job well, because it's already has this amazing system in place, but it can go haywire if we don't give it the right support. So like I mentioned, a lot of these hormones, they're based on the building blocks that we take in from our food, right? So for example, insulin is a hormone that communicates to our body about, when you need, to take in excess blood sugar and so on. And it's actually made of proteins. So it's an amino acid based hormone. So if you're not taking enough protein, you can imagine, well, maybe you're not producing the right amount of insulin, things like that. So you want to be able to, nourish your body enough so it can produce the hormones that it needs to produce. And also, not interfere with it by, releasing other hormones in response to stress that can, downregulate other processes. And hopefully I'm not getting too thick into the weeds here. Let me know if I need to expand on something.
No, I think that's amazing. And it's always so amazing when you sit there and you think, our bodies are so incredible, right? How we are made is so incredible. And we take our bodies for granted every day. And when you sit there and you think, okay, but this has to be going this way in order for this to work, and this has to be this, and when that happens and this happens and everything, like you said, it's like this ginormous city, and in order for that city to function properly, everybody needs to be doing their job, and they need to do their job well. And that's, I mean, when you sit there and you really think about it, it's mind-blowing just how our bodies are designed and how we work. You talked a little bit, you said, if our hormones shift. So when and that happens, right? So especially like hormone shifts, like during like big events, like pregnancy, postpartum, right? These are
Mhm.
huge things that happen in our bodies as women. So, as a mother yourself, what have you experienced and learned from um, your own experience as becoming a mother, right? How these changes affect your body, and how has this influenced your approach to coaching other mothers going through this type of similar experience?
For sure. Yeah, I'm still in the thick of it basically with two little toddlers. But yeah, I don't think I ever was more acutely aware of my hormones and I was going through pregnancy and postpartum. You just really feel it in those times.
Right, right,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it's I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that things take time, you know? So pregnancy, postpartum, breastfeeding, these are all like huge physical and emotional shifts that are going on, right? And as women, we get a lot of pressure to like bounce back somehow while we're still, nourishing a baby
Hmm.
and running on very little sleep. So as I talked about before, our bodies aren't machines. So just like it took 9 months to do this amazing change and grow a little person inside of your body, it takes some time to recalibrate afterwards, and that's okay, right?
Right.
There's a lot of pressure to just feel like your old self right away, have the same energy and body and mood, but that's honestly not very realistic to you. So what you need in general, what I found, like during the postpartum time, especially, is that this is not a time to be like, well, never. It should be a time to be punishing yourself or restricting, right? You want to be really focused on nourishment, right? Because it's obviously not just you, it's also the little ones. But yeah, you don't want to, I don't think this is really the time to be like counting calories or trying to, doing a diet to get back to your pre-baby weight or things like that. You want to be focusing on giving your body what it needs. So like proteins, healthy fats, fiber, phytonutrients, and carbs because you need the energy, right?
Yeah,
So all
yeah.
these, yeah, I mean, otherwise, I don't know how to keep up with these little guys. They're so small and so fast. I don't know how that happens, but
Yeah.
and a lot of times, getting more rest isn't exactly an option if your little one still wakes up every few hours at night. So food actually can and is very essential like to keep you going during that time. So that's you know in general for coaching new moms through this, I really try to give them a lot of grace. It's tell them like it's not a time for more rules or more to dos. It's just like how can we really take care of you, right? Because you're taking care of everyone else, we're going to take care of you too. So whether that's quick ways to make some balanced meals or slowly managing figuring out how to rest within your busy day, and those are things that we want to build so that we can grow with our babies.
I love that. I love that. And I think, you know, there's a couple things that you said that were just so important because you said, it's not the time to be worrying about getting back to your pre-baby weight. And I think there is so much pressure that comes back to, whether it's social media or a well-meaning friend or family member who said, "Yeah, I bounced back no problem after." You couldn't even tell I was pregnant, and these little messages that get sent to us that we are supposed to bounce right back. We are supposed to look like what we used to look like. We are supposed to do all of these things. In reality, we're not. Right? We've just gone through this huge change. We've just grew a whole human, right? And that's amazing that we did that. And so instead of celebrating that we did that and celebrating what our body has done for us, we're almost shamed by it again, right? We're ashamed of well, I don't look the same. I got to get back to where I was. And you mentioned how you got to feed yourself. You got to nourish yourself. You got to eat those carbs because you need that energy because your body you are now getting up every 2 hours or you're whatever, you're chasing the babies, you're doing all of the things. And I love how you just really bring that to your clients of no, it's okay. It's okay. We can change, and continue to nourish you so that you have that fuel that you need to go on. But also let's celebrate where you are and let's make it okay that we've just had a baby. And so now we have a post baby body. I think that's incredible. That's amazing.
It's okay
Um,
to be human.
yeah, it's okay to be human. We don't have to be the highlight reels on Instagram or whatever the case is.
Mhm.
So we talked a little bit, you talked a little bit about cancer, and it's interesting because a couple weeks ago I did a podcast with Kara, and she had been diagnosed with cancer. And when she was diagnosed, she did a lot of research. She switched over to plant-based eating. And you said when your mom was going through it, that's what she decided to do. And so the power in plant-based. So in your research with cancer stem cells and even the COVID-19 proteins, how did your research background influence your coaching style and your approach to nutrition and wellness? And do you draw any connection between your scientific background and your coaching philosophy? So are you like mixing the two? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I've definitely researched a whole lot of different things. And honestly, yeah, so how I put it together is like it allows me to really be able to deep dives on whatever I need to support my clients, right? So that's a skill that I learned during my PhD because yeah, I focus on cancer stem cells, but you were expected to like, okay, now we're gonna do a project on Alzheimer's disease, let's go learn everything about Alzheimer's disease, come back to me in a week and let's figure this thing out. So that's kind of a skill that I use also of like if my client comes to me, hi, I have, thyroid issues, I have, pre-diabetes. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I don't go in that world at all, but I do, dive deep into the literature on that to make sure whatever I'm supporting my clients with is evidence-based and backed by science. But I love the other question you mentioned, like how does my scientific background connect to my coaching philosophy? I actually hadn't thought about it before, but it really actually does work out that I kind of take a scientific method approach to coaching my clients. Because just like you mentioned before, every person is unique, right? We've all got our own genetics, hormone patterns, health histories, environment, right? So what works great for one person is probably not going to work well for someone else. So instead of like a one size fit all plan, like here's my, meal plan for everyone, I actually collaborate with my clients and we experiment together. So usually now, I mean, obviously we're not going to be throwing out the fundamentals. Everyone needs balanced, nourishing meals. We're not cutting out entire food groups here. But how that looks like in someone's daily life could vary a lot. So one person might feel better with more healthy fats in their diet. Other people prefer more complex carbs. Other people, need that higher protein focus. So we try different things. We observe how they feel and we adjust from there. So just like the scientific method, we start with an observation. So that's usually a food journal or symptom log, right? We assess if there are any nutrient gaps or patterns that we see. And then we make a hypothesis. So what small changes might help? So that's our question. Then we, think about an experiment to try. Maybe it's adding a new food or adjusting the meal timing or just focusing on fiber is a great one. And then we follow up in our next session. We talk about what worked, what didn't, and why, and we go on from there. And it's just like science, it's a process of ongoing refinement. So it's that mindset, like curiosity, personalization, and just always learning new things is really the heart of good science and good coaching for me.
I love that. I love that so much because yeah, you just nailed it, right? And because all of those things are so important of finding out what works for each individual and drawing your conclusions from that, and then eventually coming to that conclusion of this is who you are, and this is what works best for you. I love all of that. I love how you broke that down. That's amazing, amazing. What do you in your experience so far? So what are some of the most common nutritional deficiencies you think that women face, particularly when we talk about hormones, gut health, overall wellness? And how can women identify these deficiencies in their own lives and in their own diet?
Right. Yes. So that's a great question. And Well, generally when people think about nutritional deficiencies, we sort of jump to like, what specific vitamin or mineral and am I missing? But honestly, the most common deficiency I see is fiber. It might surprise people, especially like in plant-based, right? You hear a lot about protein, like you need to get more protein. It is important, but most people actually are getting enough to get by. But fiber, on the other hand, I read a statistic just recently. I could hardly believe it. 95% of Americans are not getting enough fiber, according
Yeah.
to national surveys.
I
So
read
that's
that same one and I was just like, oh my gosh, you are kidding me.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you almost don't need to identify the deficiency unless you're one of the lucky 5%. You probably could use some more fiber.
Right, exactly. Just go ahead. Just go ahead, add that in.
But yeah, and it's so important, right? So obviously people think about it for digestion, but it really helps your hormone health too. Since it keeps things moving throughout your digestive system, sometimes if you produce excess hormones, you need to be able to excrete those, right, to make sure you don't have an imbalance. So fiber keeps things moving. It also supports your gut microbiome in some really cool ways. I think we can probably get into that a bit more later. But yeah, so for women especially, definitely pay a lot of attention to fiber. Beyond fiber, definitely, if folks are not getting enough, veggies or leafy greens, sometimes I see people low on folate. And so for especially for women, that's a really important one to make sure you're getting enough of. Sometimes iron and calcium are there, and vitamin D is actually a big one. And that one's a little bit tricky to get from food alone. So that's the one where I might say, like, definitely keep track of it and potentially get a supplement if you need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like I mentioned before, if you want to identify these deficiencies, observation is your first step, right? So I like a good food tracking app, like Chronometer is my favorite one, especially in my practice because I can, collaborate with my patients on it. And it just gives you a good rough idea of like what are your, over a week or two, like you can spot patterns about what's missing, and then you can decide on how to fill those gaps. Usually we try to go first for, filling those gaps with food. For example, if you want in general, both, vitamins and fibers, adding leafy greens, legumes, seeds, whole grains, those can be amazing. Vitamin D is the only one that's a little bit tricky. You can get it through some fish like salmon, but if not, and especially if you're not getting enough, or it's a little difficult for you to get a good amount of sun exposure, a supplement would be really good. And obviously, if you're pregnant or could be pregnant, right, a good prenatal vitamin can cover your bases. So,
Right.
but yeah, in general, though, just eating more whole, unprocessed plants, foods can help you with both fiber and those other deficiencies.
Yeah, love it. I own a supplement store, right? So,
Mhm.
and I'll have people come in all the time and they're like, "Well, what do I need for supplements?" And my first question is, "Well, what do you eat?" Right?
Right.
Because you can, my thing is you have to be able to if you're eating well, then are only just a handful of supplements that you should need for your
Mhm.
everyday life, right? And I 100% agree at vitamin D. Especially where I live, we just don't get that much sunshine. So I'm just like, guarantee you're going to need some vitamin D. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, that's always my first question is, well, what are you eating? Because supplements are just that, they're supplements,
Mhm.
and it used to be back in the day that our food was enough, but and we're farmers, right? My husband's a farmer. We always have our own garden. We grow our own food. We do we have our own meat, but still the soil is not what it used to be. So there are some basic supplements that I always am like, okay, let's start with some of these.
Mhm.
But 100% it comes down to food first and what you're eating. I 100% with you on that one. And when we talk about plant-based, so plant-based is known for so many health benefits, right? Like you mentioned, it helped clear up your skin and help clear up, some gut issues and all of that. But it's such a difficult transition for some. We talked about how, it's the all or nothing mindset, right? So what advice would you give to someone who is interested in shifting from a plant-based diet, but they're
Mhm.
not sure where to start and they just feel overwhelmed by the process?
Yes, that's a really common feeling. Definitely understand it. I mean, in my own story, I told you about my accidental chicken sandwich. Um, but yeah, so again, it's focus on a gradual process is what I definitely recommend to most people. You don't have to go cold turkey to get the benefits. When I work with clients, most of them aren't vegan or even plant-based to start. And my approach is simple. Instead of like focusing like, okay, I need to remove the cheese, I remove the meat, I remove all these things. Let's focus on like what you can add to your diet first.
Love that.
So that transition feels better instead of feeling like I have nothing to eat, right?
Right, right.
Is what a lot of people feel like when they're just starting. And the good news is you'll start to see the benefits just from that addition, right? And slowly you can shift over. So for example, instead of trying to just overhaul everything, start by adding one high fiber food to your breakfast, for example. So maybe that's adding some oatmeal with chia seeds alongside of your eggs and bacon. And over time, you'll find you won't need as much of the other food, and you can add some more of the plant-based meals. And then those additions will help you slowly feel more satisfied, stabilize your blood sugar, and you can shift your preferences over time. So once your breakfast feels good, then you can add your lunch or your dinner a couple of times a week, just one step at a time. No need to rush. And in fact, it's actually beneficial, especially if you have been on probably like the SAD diet and have been eating almost no fiber at all. If people jump to like 50 grams of fiber in 1 week, they're probably going to have some digestive issues. So it's actually also
Right.
healthy and beneficial to, take it one step at a time, which is fine. So for plant-based, I think you mentioned a little bit earlier that a lot of folks are a little bit worried about protein when first starting out, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And definitely a valid concern. It can be, if you're just focused on like removing everything, it can be very easy to limit yourself to just like a few carbs and then, yeah, you don't have as much protein. But yeah, what you want to focus on for that, I like to focus on like whole foods. So beans, lentils, chickpeas, all these legumes are amazing for sources, not just of fiber, but protein. They can help keep you full. I also like to recommend like simple, affordable staples like tofu or TVP, which is textured vegetable protein. These are really easy ways to get more protein in. And because they're minimally processed, that means that you can add in, the appropriate amount for you of salts or fats, right? A lot of times the prepackaged things, which are great, definitely a good way to transition over, but sometimes they've got a good amount of salt and saturated fat, which, eventually might not be aligned with your health goals. So definitely would like to focus on the more simple, less processed alternatives. But yeah, at the end of the day, you don't need to flip a switch and suddenly be plant-based, right? You just kind of take it one meal at a time and focus on adding things first before you take things away. So always replace and add before restricting and removing things.
Love it. Love it. Let's switch and talk about stress for a second because, working with women, like I said, that one doctor when she was saying, we are the most stressed out beings on the planet, right? We're the most stressed out group of individuals. So and especially when we talk about moms and professionals and all of that stuff, and we talk about stress. And stress brings hormonal imbalance, right? I mean, it just does. It brings the imbalance. And so what are some ways that you encourage women to deal with that stress? What are some simple but effective stress management tools that you recommend?
Yes, definitely stress is really important. And just kind of circling back to hormones, right? The stress has a direct impact because you start to release more of a hormone called cortisol. So
Hmm.
cortisol is one of those sort of steroid-like hormones made from cholesterol, and it's part of your body's natural fight or flight system. And so usually cortisol, it does, it accomplishes things in our body that were supposed to help us in emergencies, right? So if you were fleeing from a wild pack of wolves or something, you would need cortisol because it would increase your blood sugar so you had energy to like run away, for example, right? But in today's world, right, we're stressed out at our computers or we're stressed out in our houses, and we're not physically running away. And so this ongoing stress can really take a toll on ourselves, right? Because of that cortisol is doing all the things that we don't need it to do. You can throw off your metabolism, you can break down your muscle tissue, raise your blood sugar. So not a great idea. So learning to regulate it is so important. And thankfully, one of the most effective and accessible things out there is just deep intentional breathing. Sounds too good to be true, but it actually, I saw a paper the other day, even a single session of like slow measured breathing has been found in the research to lower your cortisol levels. And this was with people with PTSD. So, they have really high stress levels. So that's really powerful. So it's nothing super fancy. It's just a few minutes of slowing your breath down and just intentionally, inhaling through your nose, out through your mouth, and extending your exhales. So that gives a signal to your brain like, hey, we're okay, we're safe. We don't need to be hyperventilating so we can run, away from danger. So that shift alone can tell our brains like, it's okay, we don't need the cortisol, we're fine,
Right.
So eventually I like to, pair the breath work with mindfulness or meditation as we go along. That really helps people to kind of get down to the root of their stress. But even on their own, just, that breathing is a tool that anyone can use anytime. So I really love it. It helped me a lot through the chaos of grad school, and I still use it now. In fact, I'm even teaching my little baby to use it. And it's so funny because it actually works. It's like he'll be throwing a tantrum on his high chair, and I tell him, and he actually does it. He wrinkles up his little nose and he tries to breathe, and it does like keep him from screaming for a few minutes. So I was like, wow,
Yeah.
even with babies, there you go.
Yeah. I
But
love that.
so you can't always remove all the stress things from your life, but yeah, a little bit of breathing and mindfulness can go a long way.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. And I was reading about how there was a study out, and I can't remember who did it, but they were talking about how like a 10-minute breathing every day reset the gut enough that people who were struggling with things like constipation, things like IBS, things like gut issues, that it just helped reset their gut within like just a couple of weeks. And they were able, because it sends that message up that all is well, we're okay, and brings that cortisol levels down. So I love that. I love that. um
Absolutely.
all right, to wrap up,
Okay.
is there one key piece of advice that you'd offer to our listeners who are struggling with hormonal imbalances or lack of energy? And what would that be? And how can they start making small, sustainable changes in their daily routines to feel better and reclaim their health?
Right. So, yeah, you always, when you have to pick one thing, it's really hard. But if I was going to keep it simple and funny, I'd say eat more beans. A lot of people aren't eating enough of them, and that's like one of the easiest way to get more fiber and more plant-based protein, as well as a whole lot of other things. But to widen it out a little bit better, obviously fiber has been the star of the show, I think, so far.
Right.
So making sure you're eating enough fiber, not just because of the benefits that fiber itself brings, but if you're eating fiber from whole plant-based sources, you're also getting phytonutrients, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. Like you're getting this whole package. So that's a really great place to start. And just in general, so like that's like the nutrition piece of it. As far as the mental side, make sure that you're doing one thing at a time and expect to be imperfect, right? You don't expect perfection, you expect imperfection, because we're humans, we're just simple human beings, and we're gonna live a full life, and that is sometimes our energy, our time, all that varies. So we're not going to have the most picture perfect Instagram worthy day all the time, and that's fine. What matters is the direction you're heading in, where you're moving towards. So learn to listen and love your body, so that you can take care of it well.
Amazing, amazing. Create that vision, right?
Mhm.
Amazing. So lastly, how can women who are interested in your services get in touch with you and learn more about how you and your husband, we didn't even talk about him, Dr. Gio, help women through the personalized wellness coaching?
Yes, my poor husband, he got left out. But yeah,
No, I feel
so
kind of bad.
yeah, so as I mentioned before, I'm a co-founder of our practice. So it's called Medichem. And well, the best place to learn more about us is our website. So it's medicempr.com. I'm sure there'll be a link
Mm-hmm.
somewhere.
The link below,
But yeah,
yep.
that's Medi from medicine because my husband's a medical doctor. So he brings that aspect into his coaching practice. Chem is from chemistry, obviously. That's my background. And PR because we're based on the beautiful island of PR. Uh, and
Love
so,
it.
but we offer services online. So it doesn't matter where you are, we can definitely work with you. You're in the US or across the world, doesn't matter. But yeah, so on our website, you can book a completely free discovery call. So that's a no pressure way to talk through what you're experiencing and see if we're a good fit for you. And if you're not up to one-on-one coaching right now, we also are continuously doing group programs or online courses for people to learn more. So I definitely recommend joining our newsletter so that you'll be the first to know of whatever pops up. So yeah, I'm happy to connect with you soon.
Fantastic. Yes. And I will definitely put your information in the show notes so that people can
Mhm.
have access to them. Absolutely. But thank you so much, Dr. Chelsea, for being on the show today and sharing your incredible expertise with us. I love all of your insights on nutrition, hormonal health, and plant-based living. It's been inspiring, and I really, really appreciate your time.
No problem. I'm always happy to come on and we can deep dive some more anytime.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much. If you'd like to connect with Dr. Chelsea and learn more about her work, you can visit her at her website and book a discovery call with her and her husband, Dr. Gio. I'll put all of their information in the show notes. All you have to do is click, and you can connect with them there. As a quick reminder to our listeners, don't forget to visit my website at www.mindycurtishealthcoach.com to take a free toxicity quiz and schedule a complimentary 30-minute discovery call with me. Let's work together to help you reset your hormones, reclaim your health, and restore your joy. Don't forget you're wonderfully and beautifully made. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Her Hormones, Empowerment, and Restoration.